Thank you, everyone. Good morning. My name is Michael. Thanks for the introduction, Bob, and thank you, Business Hunter, for the opportunity. I'm an account director at Fathom, and today we're going to talk about how collectively we can prepare the hunter for the future of work. So I'm going to share some of our data and insights on the economy in New South Wales, the future workforce demand, the skill shortages, and how we can work together to mitigate some of the risks. So just before I dive into the data, I just wanted to give you a bit of background on Fathom, what we do, who we are. So we are a Sydney-based company. As Bob mentioned, we were acquired 6 months ago by the big beast that is Pearson, taking us from 100 employees to 25,000 globally. We are now part of the workforce skills division at Pearson. And the way we work, so we are a software as a service data analytics platform that can model the impact of emerging technology and micro forces on any workforces. And the way it works, at the core of our platform, we got our occupation ontology, we got 5,600 jobs, and the way we look at those jobs are what are the skills and attributes specific to each roles, and what are the tasks that those people do on a weekly basis. Because when we apply our technology model, we look at which technology will automate or augment the tasks of the workforce. Our jobs are going to evolve over time. And we work with our clients in 2 different ways. So corporations and organizations want to understand how their digital transformation is going to impact their people and how proactively put things in place to transition them from job that will be displaced into the job that will be needed in the future. So large organization, typically over 1,000 employees, such as Telstra, Woolworths, all these guys, pull their HR data, match it to our job ontology, and get specific insights specific to their workforce. The way we work with other clients, it's when they want to understand what are going to be the impact of technology, but also external forces, such as the energy transition, on a country workforce, a state workforce, a region workforce, an industry workforce. And the way we do this is through scenarios, because as you know, it's very difficult to predict the future, so we explore different scenarios to look at the potential futures, challenge the assumption or confirm them, look at the risk and opportunities. And to do those scenarios, we got 3 different levers that we can pull. The first one is economy. So what is going to be the economic growth and decline, and how is it related to future workforce demand? So as an example, we use shock scenarios. So Eraring power station closing down, the BHP mine in Mount Arthur closing down. We can put all these scenarios to understand what does it mean for the workforce in that specific region, what are going to be the impact of government interventions. So if New South Wales government want to develop hydrogen energy industry in the region, or advanced manufacturing, whatever it may be, we can shock the scenarios to really understand the future workforce demand in that region. The second lever is technology. Through our own IP, we can play with the technology rate of adoption. So we can look at slow, medium, and fast to understand which job will be taken away from those economic growth by technology, and also which job will be added to their workforce to help us with the implementation and maintenance of those technologies that we're deploying. And finally, the time. So we can look at 0 to 15-year horizon, because post 15 years is very difficult to predict the impact of technology, so we tend to stay at 15 years. We did the intergenerational report with New South Wales Treasury when we looked at 40 years, but it's a bit more blurry, so we tend to stay at 15 years to make sure the predictions are more accurate. And for each of these 15 years, we can have different periods. So if you want to have an economic recovery period for the first 3 years, you can put this in that model, and then you can have different rate and that you can play along that timeline. So that gives us a picture of what the future will look like depending on the scenario. So for that example, we used an Australian base case scenario, meaning that we put 2% economic growth across the economy and a moderate rate of technology adoption. That gives us, over the next 15 years, the creation and the addition to 340,000 jobs across New South Wales. But because we look at New South Wales, we want to deep dive into the industry. What does that mean for an industry point of view? So the 3 different colors you can see in the middle are The green color is how many jobs will be added to the workforce from an economic point of view. So you can see that professional services on the left, healthcare sectors, construction will be added the most jobs in New South Wales over the next 50 years under that scenario. But the gray bar shows you how many of those jobs are going to be taken away from the economy from an automation point of view. So in the retail in the middle is the example that economy growth will add jobs to the workforce, but automation will take away all those jobs. So when you're thinking about transition from industry in decline into growing industry, you have to think about the net growth of jobs that will be added to the workforce. So in the mining example there, you can see that no job creation will be done in New South Wales. So when you think about job transition, ideally you don't want to target retail because you know that no jobs will be added to the workforce there. So you want to look at professional services and healthcare industry as location, as industry for you to try to retrain and redeploy the workers that will be displaced. And finally, the purple color at the top is all the tech jobs that will be added to the workforce to help you with the technology deployment. So all these jobs in tech that will be the most in demand over the next 15 years, same scenario we applied earlier, are listed on the right here. So you got the data engineers, data scientists, and so on, all these jobs that will be required to help you with your digital transformation. So there's already a large skill shortage of those roles currently, but we did a piece of research with BCG, and we have identified that by 2030 there will be 330,000 of those jobs under supply in Australia alone. So the only way to get those people is to start retraining and redeploying them or bring immigration into the play to try to fulfill that gap. And because at Fathom, we got a module called the business resilience that can work out the degree of remote productivity of any workers. We know that those jobs can be done remotely from anywhere. So not only the hunter will have to compete across industry in the region, but you have to compete for these people across the entire Australia. So you need to understand, is that feasible? Do we need to start retraining or putting people through graduate programs to get those people that we need in the future? And another big example of skill shortage in the region and in the globe at the moment is nurses. So aging population, we need more nurses, we need more carer, but there's not enough people coming through the ranks to fulfill those jobs. So one of our clients came to us a few weeks ago, the Cleveland Clinic. It's a large healthcare provider in the US. They got 73,000 employees globally. The chief HR officer came to us and said, look, as a business, we need to grow. To grow, we need to build more hospital. We need to have nurses to be able to provide care for the patients coming from the new hospital. We don't have enough people. Tell me which technology can help us gain productivity so we need less nurses to provide the same care or more care to our patients. So we did a task analysis using our model to understand the nurse and what type of tasks do they perform on a weekly basis and what can be automated through technology. And we have identified that robotic process automation is the #1 technology that can take away the mundane tasks. So all the admin tasks that they don't like to do, all the reporting anyway, can be done by robotic process automation. And on average, that will save up to 80 hours a year per nurse. So if you take this into context in the Australian healthcare industry, that will release 33,000 nurses, or the equivalent of 33,000 FTEs, back into the workforce. So that's a way to understand how can you leverage technology to mitigate the risk of skill shortages. Now, we're diving into the hunter. So similarly, we use different scenarios to understand what is the future workforce demand of the hunter over the next 15 years. So the black line is moderate growth, so 2% economic growth, and moderate technology adoption. The green line is moderate growth, the same growth rate, but fast technology adoption. And just by playing with those two levers, you can see the big gap. So the moderate growth and moderate technology adoption will create 1,000 jobs, roughly. And the fast technology adoption will take away 20,000 jobs from the region. So by playing this, and we don't take into account mine closure or government policy at this stage, it's just from a pure technological point of view. And then the granularity of Fathom, we can go down to a location specific. And not all locations, as you can see on the map here, are going to be impacted similarly. So all for that moderate scenario, all the region apart from Newcastle will be in decline in terms of job demand, but due to the industry that will be impacted. So as you can see on the right here, manufacturing, accommodation, and food services are the two industries that will be the most disrupted by technology over the next 15 years. But also certain jobs in mining, as Claire mentioned, WA and New South Wales are very different. The mining companies in WA have implemented technology way faster than in the East Coast, but now because they're all large global companies, they want to do the same process to make sure that they are more, okay, I need to rush, productive. And then in the meantime, we need more aged care, nursing support, data analysis, and so on. So just to reflect on what Claire just mentioned in the previous presentation, we are part of a global energy transition wave, and it's predicted by 2050, you know, the green skills are going to overtake compared to the brown jobs. So when we take this into account in the Hunter area, currently we've got 15,000 employees working in mining, and over time, just once again, from a technology point of view, these are the jobs in red that will be taken away over the next 15 years from automation. So when you add this into context, and when you add the BHP mine closure, so that's another 2,000 jobs, all of a sudden you can create a big picture of how many jobs will be lost in the region over the next 15 years. That's why we play with different scenarios to really understand what does that mean in terms of job growth and job decline. But it's not all doom and gloom. You can see in green there's a lot of jobs that will be added to the sector from a tech point of view, but also different jobs that will be needed to help with the technology. So once again, that doesn't take into account other economic factor or other intervention, but that number will change if you play different scenarios. And finally, just to finish on this, just to give you an example of how we can transition people from industry in decline into growing industries. And at Fathom, we got something called the job corridor that can compare any two jobs within a workforce and understand the skill gaps between the two jobs. And then in that example of a driller and a miner moving into a solar installer, we got a job fit score of 85%. So the job fit score takes into account skills and skills proximity between the two jobs, rate of automation of the job that they transition into, because you don't want to transition into a job that is automatable, and also the salary, because ideally they want to have a similar salary. And then the higher the job fit score, the quicker that transition is going to be. And then through the job corridor, we can show you which gaps are matched that you can see on the left, and which gaps they will need to upskill to transition into that new job. And that's where we need to work with TAFE and other curriculum providers to develop the content and provide the content at scale to those people that will be displaced. And that's it for me. If you want to know more about some of our clients, so we are in 26 countries, 21 industries, working with a lot of range of clients, from large multinational to state, government, and industry skills body. So please, I'll be around. Come have a chat, and thank you for your time today.